right. Pre- and post-game host, you heard it on the promo, Josh Brisco. You, I'm sure, you get it. I mean, you get it right away, man. You get that post-game reaction, the text line, all that. But instead, after the game, instead of dwelling and licking the wounds, you were hanging out with Hooters.
Whoa, that's not exactly true, Dusty. I understand. That's a common misconception about how I spend my post games. But no, it's partially true. I got home, the sad drive back in silence, the walk into the house at 12:30 a.m. or whatever, and I heard two owls hooting at each other in my backyard. So that was just a nice little spark of the magic of the animal kingdom after yet another pretty disappointing football game.
Well, it's funny about the owls because I have two plastic ones on the side of the house right now. We have a woodpecker problem. So if you can get those owls to move to my yard, I will gladly pay you Tuesday for 2 owls today.
Bob, I'll trade you. In fact, I love woodpeckers. I understand it's not going to be good for the sighting, but I have really been on a woodpecker tear recently. We got downy woodpeckers. I don't think we've gotten the red belly. I think those are the bigger ones. I'm guessing
I saw one of those
downy woodpeckers.
I don't know what it is, but I did see one that looked kind of like Woody. It was gray with a red head, and it was out on the trail, and it was big. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a big woodpecker. So if you want to come over and sit there and sit out back by the fire pit with me and watch the woodpeckers, man, you're more than welcome to do that. And I know I'm not supposed to say if you got a little trap or something, we can catch them, but they do mad damage to the house, man.
Yeah, I'll bring an owl and a cigar or something.
Perfect.
And now, honestly, I think that sounds better for my blood pressure than talking about the Chiefs as this year.
I agree.
So, talking about those Chiefs, was it more frustrating that Andy decided to go for it or the play that was drawn up to go for it?
Oh, that's a good question. And look, I am going to answer that directly, but I want to make sure you guys know where I start from. I am a little bit of a nerd. I do want to see the fourth down bots. I do generally want more fourth down aggressiveness, and even a guy like Dan Campbell has gotten more aggressive than even the analytics. So I do like fourth down aggression, and I wish the Chiefs would have been more aggressive on fourth down against the Cowboys, earlier in the game against the Texans, and even with that being said, when the offense stayed on the field at the 31-yard line, I was stunned. But I wasn't entirely upset because you've had the guy who's better than the tush push at picking that play up. So I think I am ultimately more frustrated with the specifics of the play call. And look, again, I want Patrick Mahomes to have the ball in his hands more often than not as well. But you guys talked about it earlier. I don't know if it was earlier this hour or after you talked to Dane. And I've been locked in today, fellas. I've been listening. I've been hearing. You've been doing some great stuff on these airwaves.
Thank you.
But I really do think there's something to the idea that they always want to have the ability to surprise a defense. You always want to have all your options out there, and sometimes that reveals itself with Kareem Hunt lined up tight left and Hollywood Brown running a little orbit motion, but the surprise that the Chiefs could actually show at this point would be Patrick Mahomes getting under center and play action to Kareem Hunt where you have to sell out to stop him on 4th and 1. That really would be like the biggest curveball the Chiefs offensively could throw there. So if they would have gone out there and handed it to Kareem Hunt and he didn't get it, I think you go, well, that's a risky decision, but you tried your best play for that circumstance, and that makes sense. You go out there and you try something, a little play action to Kareem Hunt, and then maybe Mahomes rolls out and it's either Hollywood or nobody, and you go, man, it's frustrating, but at least you tried something that has shown evidence of working. And the play we ultimately got just sort of looked like a lot of the failed plays against the Texans, kind of a no-chance, sad little dot over the middle, and it falls to the ground, and I don't think anybody was surprised when that fell incomplete.
When you look at this team and you look at the players that kind of have either been shown or not been shown, I'm sure you're on the same side as most of us over here, but we see, Pole come in and play left tackle. I'm not saying that he's going to be a LT1, right? I'm not saying that, but the fact that maybe you had that guy on your roster and never really saw him, and then you throw him out into what is, I think we could all agree, the best defensive line in football, maybe them or Denver, however you want to do 1A, 1B, and to see that production from him and Noel Williams and stuff like that, is there an issue with, roster evaluation with this team this year? Or is that me just in panic mode?
I mean, there's something. They're 6-7. Like, that's the place where I do feel like there's a little bit of safety in being critical of the general picture. It's not a totally different operation than it was when they went to 3 consecutive Super Bowls. But so what did happen this year? And I'm kind of with you. I mean, this is a team that traded for Derek Nottie and let Mike Pennell go, and then got Mike Pennell back and spent a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of money on Jerry Tillery early in free agency. Well, now Nottie, Tillery, and Pennell are all basically playing the same rotation of snaps, right? You cut Esapole at your roster cut downs. He goes to the Jets. He comes back, and he might have given you the best tackle performance you saw against that Texans pass rush on Sunday night. So I do think there's got to be that question of like, wait, so what? In all the reports were that the Chiefs really liked Pole and they thought they could get him to the practice squad when they cut him and cut downs and all of that. But I would ask, like, what is it that's having you have more confidence in Wanye Morris, or why this team seems to love Mike Caliendo? And as a 6th lineman, that's important, to have some agility and everything. And so he's a little undersized at guard. That's no secret. It's, that's why he's a 6th lineman and not a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th lineman. But I do wonder, how do you find these guys who you are either so in love with that you're going to part from potentially promising young players, or how do you make that transition? And again, the defense was not in any way the problem against the Texans. No. It was a really good day from the defense. But Mike Edwards played almost 3 times the snaps that Jaden Hicks played. And that's like just odd. When you go, wait a second, he's been like a practice squad veteran, and obviously they've had injuries rolling through and all of that. But Is Jaden Hicks just not going to be one of those guys? Or was there a real reason that Mike Edwards has gotten more playing time than Hicks has as of late? Or is that a thing where Spags is trusting the vets? And again, it's silly even to bring up the defensive ones outside of this conversation about talent evaluation. Who do the coaches want? Who does the front office want? And how those pieces all fit together. I talked about Joshua Uche last year more than any healthy human being. And then you see him, have a nice little season after he gets out of here. So I do think there's something to be ironed out there, and I think this offseason they absolutely have to just figure out where those gears haven't quite clicked together.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Uche, Josh Briscoe, because I'm looking at what I saw on Sunday, and Esapole, as we've talked about, has been fantastic, and so that's great, fantastic, wonderful. My biggest concern is if they missed on him, how many other people are they missing on because they're not giving them that viable opportunity because they'd rather take some veteran on their team than maybe a younger guy? Or even Josh Uche kind of falls into that, that category as well. My mind immediately went to how many other guys are on this roster that can play, but the coaching staff is just not giving them, Andy Reid in particular, the opportunity to go out there and play.
I think you can also take that and attach it to the idea of who do you bring in. And the position group that jumps to mind for me then is the running back room, where I don't know what the Chiefs, here's the thing again, we truly don't know like how much of Andy Reid talks about having 51% of the vote all the time, but he also says Veach handles the personnel, right? Obviously that's hand in hand and they're doing that together. But this team has 7 running backs on the 70-man roster, including the practice squad. And I wonder if they make a more aggressive move for a running back in free agency this offseason, like last offseason, this previous offseason, if they don't feel so good about the familiarity of Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, and they bring Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, and they kind of hedge a little bit on Elijah Mitchell. I wonder if there are other instances kind of in addition to that where you say, you know what, we are going to go ahead and double down with the familiar faces, the guys who do know the protection schemes and all of that, where, again, most of the time when you see the offense rolling at high capacity, 100% power, that's because these are players who are familiar with the Andy Reid offense, who have been in it long enough to really master it, and that's what you want to put out there. But this entire season, it hasn't looked like anyone's had a mastery of the offense. And so how do you balance that between having the guys who do know the system, who can bring other people along? Juju Smith-Schuster will always have a place on this roster, and I'm okay with him always having a place on the roster, but how do you make sure that you're getting Tyquan Thornton more involved? How do you use Xavier Worthy in the intermediate, even though they might not have as much of the confidence of the coaching staff as a guy like Juju brings, or, obviously the super vets like a Travis Kelce? I'm getting to another thing now, but I heard you talking to Danon about it. If Travis Kelce wants to come back next year, I'd love to have him, but you also do want to get to that point where you're figuring out what the next evolution of the offense looks like. And that was a reason that the Texans game was even more frustrating for me. Rashee Rice was supposed to be the guy to take that baton from Travis Kelce, and the greatest tight end of all time, Travis Kelce, and the number one weapon on this offense, Rashee Rice, both literally and figuratively dropped the ball against the Texans, and the season is very, very close to over. It's just that it feels like a perfect little summation of how this season's gone.
So your boy Mac had a minor take earlier because we were talking about the text line saying, would you rather just miss the playoffs or lose in the first round of the playoffs? And my theory is always make the playoffs. And Max says if they miss the playoffs, that might be the juice they need to realize what they need to, go out there and change.
Yeah, personally, I'd like to do more post-game shows. So I want them to play for as long as possible. I'd take a couple more preseason games. But I think there's something to that. Again, like nobody in that organization, I don't think, is probably thinking, yeah, let's just go ahead and get this thing over with. Let's trot Gardner Minshew out there a few times, and that Week 18 game will be funny just from like a draft position standpoint, with the Raiders trying to get the top pick and the Chiefs probably being fully eliminated around then. But I guess we'll see. I do think there's a little bit of something to like, okay, can you, after all year saying we're just a tick off, just a thing to clean up, we're really, really close, if you miss the playoffs entirely and it's not, a doinked field goal in the wild card round that keeps you from advancing, I do think that may open a little bit more of an opportunity for some of that soul searching you guys have been talking about. But I think that they probably really do still feel like they're close. They are still close. It is these one possession games over and over and over again. So I just hope this is the biggest challenge of the offseason. You've talked about assistant coaches. You've talked about decisions from the head coach, the personnel department, the players, the talent itself. The Chiefs' biggest assignment this offseason is to figure out what specifically failed this season and how you can fix that going forward. Because I really don't think they're going to need 30 new faces. This isn't a total overhaul. But you also only have so much flexibility. Mm-hmm. So how do you use that limited flexibility? You have to start by correctly identifying where the problems are at.
Don't you also, though, think, Josh, in a realistic way, every team in the NFL is this close? I mean, it is the NFL, right? And so when I hear we're this close, well, you're basically every other NFL team that's not in the playoffs. You're a couple plays away from being where you need to be, and you're a couple plays away because of bad decisions, bad plays, bad whatever the case may be. So I hate when they say we're this close and we're not that far away. That's the difference in the NFL between being a playoff team and being a team that's talking about the draft.
You're 100% right, but I think it's still true, but it is frustrating, and it's not terribly helpful to your point.
Yeah.
Like, look, I think everybody's close except the Jets, but if you told me that the Jets magically got the rights to Patrick Mahomes, they'd be in the wild card race, bare minimum. They might be a playoff team because they have Patrick Mahomes. So no, I absolutely think that's true. You are always close in the NFL. That's why the sport is so good at holding on so tight to 32 fan bases, because you always could be a quarterback away. Most teams are a few players away from getting into that mix, and it's also what made these last several years of these Chiefs runs so unbelievably impressive. They made it not look that close. And on the other side of that coin, you're always that close to falling off, to losing your spot. And right now, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Eagles right now are all struggling with the fact that they are on the downslope. And I think the Bills obviously just had a nice win, but like all of those teams are not at the places they thought they'd be coming into this year. So it's a double-edged sword that way. Everybody's close to winning, everybody's close to losing, and trying to fend that off, and fending it off successfully for as long as the Chiefs have is really impressive. But nobody wants to hear that in early December. You want to be talking about the playoffs.
No doubt about it. Or Phillip Rivers playing quarterback again.
I mean, is there another? Have you guys looked to see? Has anyone ever started a game at quarterback as a grandfather?
As a grandfather, no, but I did see the ages of the oldest people to have played quarterback in the NFL. And we have to go back to 1975. 48-year-old George Blanda played for the Raiders.
Yeah, okay, good.
2022, 45-year-old Tom Brady played for the Buccaneers. And then we have Steve DeBerg, Warren Moon, and Vinny Testaverde all at the age of 44. DeBerg playing for the Falcons in 98, Warren here in Kansas City in 2000, Testaverde for the 07 Panthers. Who the hell remembers that?
Wow.
And then Doug Flutie at 43 started for the 2005 Patriots. So he's going to be top 5 oldest people to start. Grandfather, I think it has to be the first.
I mean, look, Phillip Rivers' resume on the field and off the field is really impressive. So I think he deserves, if anybody does, he deserves to be the first NFL quarterback to get some NFL action as a grandpa. That's nothing more Phillip Rivers than that, other than the pick he will throw immediately after entering the game.
To take it one step further, this is great. Phillips Rivers was drafted April 24th, 2004. There are 10 players who appeared in an NFL game this season who weren't born then.
I guess you could say he was grandfathered in. And on that, I will let you have the rest of the day off, Josh Brisco. And we appreciate it. Continue looking for those Hooters out in the backyard.
Hoot, hoot, baby. We'll talk to you later.